Hello, and welcome to Reason. Today is Sunday, April 1st, and this episode is entitled Apollo 15. Dude dropped a hammer and a feather on the moon. And some of you assholes still don't believe in science. I'm Joshua Billingsley, along with Paul Whitmire.
How you doing?
And this podcast is coming to you live from sunny Buffalo, New York. Reason Podcast is a weekly discussion of events, current and historical, from a skeptical, rational, and non-theological perspective. Reason Podcast is brought to you by The Offensive Atheists and the atheist community of Buffalo and Western New York. For further information, please visit our blog and website at wnyatheist.org or email us at reason@wnyatheist.org.
Improved Gravity Field of the Moon from the Lunar Prospector is a paper written by a dude with a lot of consonants in his name. I'm going to go with Konoplev.
Konoplev?
Konoplev. Et al.
Konoplev et al. So yes, there's probably more consonants than that.
Okay, there's another guy named Williams who's on the list there.
I say it's Williams. Williams did it.
Yeah, he's actually the last listed author. But
I can pronounce that.
Okay, so this is a paper published in Science. So Science is
it's the cream of the crop.
It's the cream of the crop, the top echelon of primary source journal articles for science. It's a very important journal. And this is actually an old paper. It's back from 1998. The reason why I want to talk about this paper is because there was a more recent survey of the gravity of the moon done, but they have not yet published the paper on that. The more recent survey that was done because of this original deal here. So this paper is science in all of its glory. This is a great paper. Okay. Now here's what's going on. It's a lot of math and a lot of maps of gravity of the moon, and they're very lovely pictures, which I'm sure everyone listening to this as a radio show will enjoy thoroughly.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful. They're fantastic. Can't you see them, all you folks out there?
So, but what happened is the Lunar Prospector mapped the gravity fields of the moon, and what they found was that some parts of the moon have a greater amount of gravity than other parts of the moon. And it doesn't actually correspond with there's a mountain there or whatnot. Actually, what they found was that there was an increase in gravity in big-ass craters. Okay?
In holes.
In holes. So where there was less moon, there was more gravity.
Where something hit the moon.
Right. Okay? So the way to explain this, I mean, there is no other way to explain it other than to say that in that area there is an increase in density. That's the only way that could work.
Now, here's my question, though.
Yeah.
Is that because did asteroids hit there because there was more density, because there was more gravity? I mean, was there additional pull in that area, and that's why they hit? Or is it more like they hit there and somehow caused there to be more gravity? Do they have a theory on this, or is there even anything put forth? Well,
they don't discuss that in the paper, but I would say what you have to consider is inertia. So the moon is rotating around the Earth, and the asteroids that hit the moon, they're traveling, basically relative to the moon in a straight line. Their course is not going to be altered that much because of the acceleration. They're traveling, when the asteroids hit the moon, they're traveling at thousands of miles an hour. It's like shooting a bullet at the moon.
So you're thinking it's not that those sections had more of a pull.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's where they got hit. And the science somewhat substantiates that, because here's what the theory based upon the fact that these holes in the moon have an increase in the amount of gravitational field or gravitational attraction. Their theory is, so you shoot the asteroid at the moon and it hits it, and there's a big explosion, ton of energy, and what you get with a ton of energy is you get a ton of heat.
Okay.
So much heat, in fact, that if there were an iron core or some sort of metallic core, it would melt that, and in the process, with the collapsing of the mantle, with the collapsing of the crust, some of that iron would, due to heating and expansion, it's now liquid. When it was a solid, it would expand, it would come up closer to the surface. And what that would do is that would create a greater area of density, which would create a greater gravitational field.
Well, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not Captain Science Man, but I was under the impression that the prevailing theory is that is not the case. That when the asteroid or whatever it was that struck the Earth that knocked a piece of it off, which became the moon, that's after the Earth formed. So there shouldn't be like part of the core.
Well, I think what you're getting to is, does the moon have an iron core?
I thought it wasn't supposed to.
It wasn't supposed to.
Okay.
It wasn't supposed to. So that is the point of this paper. This paper back in 98, this paper that is the reason why we just recently sent the 2 satellites up there to more accurately graph the gravitational field, is the explanation is it's either iron or iron sulfide or some other wacky metal, but most likely...
we should go to the moon and mine wacky metals.
Yeah.
This would be great.
Wacky metal.
Adamantium, here we come.
Yeah, that's exactly where it came from. It makes perfect sense. So the density that they found based upon the math, though, is consistent with iron. It's consistent with iron or iron sulfide, and based upon that, they came to a determination that their theory is that the moon does have an iron core and is 220 to 240 kilometers in radius. All of that was found by mapping the gravitational field of the moon.
Would you call that pure science?
I would.
Okay.
And so, all right. So we mapped the gravitational field of the moon. Mm-hmm. And okay, what's the point of that? What are we going to do with that? Well, here's the thing. The moon, we have evidence that the moon is nothing more than basically a big chunk of the Earth that got knocked off.
Right.
Okay. And so the moon came from a giant asteroid hitting Earth. If the Earth was formed at the time, there is no way without cracking the Earth in half that we could get to the iron core of the Earth.
That's what I was saying. That seems to be the problem.
So this iron core in the moon means it's entirely possible that the asteroid that created the moon hit the Earth before the Earth was the Earth, and when the Earth was a bunch of rocks coalescing together in what's called an accretion disk, forming one big gigantic rock.
Okay.
And that's huge. Number one, that means that the age of the moon is far older than we thought.
That was going to be my question. Is that sort of changes the whole chronology of the moon's development, as far as we know.
And so sure, you could ask the next leading question of okay, well, so what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? I mean, why do we care if the moon came before or after the Earth fully assembled? Well, the answer to that question is this is pure science. They mapped the moon, they mapped the gravitational field of the moon. They never expected to find out anything about the formation of the accretion disk of the Earth, and they did.
They found out about the history of the Earth, possibly changing an assumption that we've had for decades.
Now, what are we going to do with the information about the accretion disk formation of the Earth? Mm-hmm. Who can say? But it's still important to know. It's still important to have that knowledge.
What just occurred to me is that they keep talking about if we ever have another manned space voyage, that we would probably go to the moon and then shoot to Mars from the moon. If there are additional resources there, if there's the possibility of additional elements, things that can be mined or used, that could change the entire plan for getting to Mars.
Yes.
And who knows what we'll get Martians. We'll get Martians out of this, and that would be pretty cool.
So, that's a brief discussion on this paper, Improved Gravity Field of the Moon from the Lunar Prospector. And the reason why, I could probably babble on for another 30 to 45 minutes about it, but that would be the entire length of the show. So, instead, I don't want to go through all of the math that's there, because that's just going to not work out. Because, number one, I'm going to be wrong about it. Like, at least some of it.
Well,
Physics Vegan Brian's going to call in.
Oh, yeah. We'll have trouble.
I'm going to have to tell him that he's wrong, even though he's probably right.
Well, you'll have to support your answer, though.
He's then going to get mad at me later. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is going to be a shitstorm. So, Instead of that, I'm just saying, isn't it impressive? They mapped the gravitational field of the moon, and in doing so, discovered that the moon is far older than they thought, and the Earth's formation happened differently than they thought. And who knows what we'll find once we gather all the new data gotten by the two satellites that were more accurately mapping the gravitational field. So that is Improved Gravity Field of the Moon from the Lunar Prospector.
Fantastic.